Bob Pollock is with us from the Extension Service. You can give Bob a call at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. If you have a question about your yard, your garden, your plants, all of those things. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Bob, good morning.
Good morning.
The first question, I've already been asked it, and you probably have already anticipated it. Bob, when should I start spraying for tomato blight? They just put the plants in the ground. They want to start spraying already. Do they need to?
Probably not for tomato blight yet. We have not.
Will it hurt them if they do?
We've just started doing monitoring for that. In fact, the first report came out this week. So we're okay yet.
Does it hurt them if they do start spraying right away?
No, because there are other fungi that will attack the plant.
And the spray ought to do it too?
Yeah, especially. Okay. So the two other key ones on tomatoes are early blight, and then there's another leaf spot that will infest tomatoes very commonly.
Are they airborne as well?
And yeah, they will move around. Of course, they have spore stages, part of their life cycle. So on fronts and just wetting periods, when we have wetting periods, then those can move around
like this week,
cause infections. Yeah, and it's been so spotty, but it's been warm, it's been humid, and we've had intermittent showers. We've had dew. So anything that causes a wetting period, even watering, and we talked a little bit about that last week about watering. If you had to pick a time of day, we'd go with morning to water, just because we're going to have the day ahead of us, and as long as the sun comes out for a little bit, it'll dry the foliage off. Of course, that doesn't happen on a fully rainy day. But we don't want to add to those events. We want to lessen that as much as possible, keep the foliage dry as much as possible, because that helps really minimize diseases that might start to infest plants. But the early blight, the septorial leaf spot, those are two key ones that will get on tomatoes, and those start way before. Those can cause infections now. And then, of course, the late blight usually comes in later, July into August.
Yeah. And that's when they begin to actually affect the fruit.
Yes.
Yeah. Because then you have the fruit.
And we can miss that. We can have tomato plants that you've planted, then they might have some yellowing leaves, especially on the older leaves on the bottom of the plant. You might plant them, and then those leaves start to turn yellow. And that could just be from transplant shock. It could be from the age of the plant and just the conditions that those plants were under prior to when they were planted, as well as when they were planted, that can stress the plant a little bit, and then they'll lose those older leaves. But look at that. Look at the plant. Is the plant, once you transplant it, what does it look like? And as the days go on and the weeks, are you getting new growth? Is the plant growing? And look out at the tips of all the branches. Are we getting new growth coming out? And so that's a good sign that plant is caught. It started to grow. The root system's growing. And you can have plants sit there a little while, too, and not do much. And that part of that can just be recovering, trying to get established. They maybe were shocked a little bit, and so they try to get those roots established a little bit before you'll see top growth occurring.
Okay.
So don't get too bent out of shape or concerned right up front. Now, if they don't do anything and they start to decline, they might even get a little purpling color along with that yellowing. And if they don't put any new growth out, then we've got a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a caller. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Has there been a blight that affected brambles? My raspberries and blackberries are really in bad shape.
Uh-oh.
There are several options there. Of course, we have a lot of brambles that just naturally grow along the hedgerows and the edges of roads, and and all that. And so those unkept ones can be a source of inoculum or diseases and pests that can then move around and infect our planted ones. So we have things like orange rust, which is really
I'm familiar with that.
which is very common around here. There are other cane blights. There's a spur blight, which will affect the cane at each place where a leaf comes out, where a bud is along the branch, and that'll cause a darkened area right at that bud or where that branch comes out, which eventually causes a canker-looking spot there, a dead area, and then that affects the ability of that plant to move water and nutrients through that cane. So we can have a spur blight, we can have a tip blight, which essentially kills the tip of the branch and causes dieback. We have several insects that can also cause decline in those canes. So we've got a couple borers that will, the adults look a lot like a wasp, but they'll come and lay an egg, and then that egg will hatch into a larva which bores on the inside of the cane.
Okay, is it kind of like a squash vine borer?
Yes, yes.
Goes down.
Yep,
down
goes
the cane.
goes down the cane, and that can be farther down the cane. There is a crown borer that will get down near the base of the plant, and then there's also one that gets within the last 6 inches to a foot of the new growth, and it'll cause it to wilt and then curl over like a shepherd's cane, and then cause that whole tip of that branch to die, which we can prune that off because they'll usually get some new buds will come out and some new growth will come out. It can affect yield. Usually does not kill the plant. Now the crown one, yeah, that borer can kill the plant. Another thing that can happen with brambles is depending on the winter and depending on the variety that we have, and this is more true of blackberries than it is of black raspberries and raspberries, but just hardiness of the plant itself. We can have winter kill. We can have stems that will just die back or not leaf out in the spring.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is wind damage. Because those canes are standing there during the winter, we can get snow load, ice load. We can get winter winds that can blow those and actually snap them a little bit. They don't completely come off, but damage them just enough that they'll weakens them, and then we don't see the problem until they start to grow or they don't start to grow. And so you can have a whole cane die that way.
So as he looks at all of these and considers the possibilities, there's probably not one product that is going to help him?
No.
Okay.
There wouldn't be. Depending on, of course, do we have an insect that's causing it? Do we have a disease that's causing it? Or is it an environmental issue? And then, so do you have...
Because I've had blackberries, coming out my ears for years. And, and then all of a sudden, the stand is like maybe 25% of the size it was last year.
Okay, you lost entire plants then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did they look good going into the fall? Everything looked fine.
Year.
And they just didn't come, nothing came out this spring.
Nope.
So that growth that was there from last year, the new growth that comes up that you would have expected to flower and fruit this year, it never leafed out.
Nope.
Yeah. So we've got, when a whole plant goes, then we got to start looking at the root system in a lot of cases.
Okay.
So something's happened there that's killed off that root system that prevented that plant from leafing out this spring.
Do you have a PSU pamphlet that would speak to that I could call the office and get?
Yes, I have. I don't have something that's nice and concise and neat, but I do have. I do have some things that I could print out and that'll address those pests that are potential could be causing this. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Well, why don't I give the office a call?
Okay, and we'll get that. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Hey, you're welcome.
All right. And that's obviously a very good segue for us to say, anytime you have a concern, you want to know about some of these problems, there's probably something that Extension has on it, and you can call the office at 465-3880 and say, hey, here's what's going on. Hey, we've got something for that, and you can fix them up.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to look those things up. Sometimes they're buried in resource manuals and things, and they're not always in a nice printed version anymore. That's
I think
for
the
sure.
real problem was his berries were growing out of his ears.
Yes, that had to be painful.
Never a good idea. All right, so it's Indiana in the morning. He's Bob Pollock. Yesterday had some work done on the lawn.
Yes.
We had the pipe replacement project over the winter, and the dirt was all hoved up on it, so got that all leveled off. Now I have a big brown patch of grass heading through the lawn, or of dirt heading through the lawn that I need to seed. The machine that did it, of course, left tracks and compacted that. What's my best approach for seeding that up now?
Anything that seems to be compacted, try to get it loosened up because it'll be hard for seeds to germinate and really grow and develop a good root system in compacted soil. Mm-hmm. So we always like to have a nice seed bed to plant in. Of course, grass seeds are pretty tiny. They're germinating in that top, eighth, couple eighths of an inch soil on the top. But just having that soil worked up and leveled out is going to be very helpful. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we're moving into the middle of June now, so we're getting a little late. But as long as we get ample moisture, you can sow the seed, get it to germinate, and then you just might have a couple more challenges to keep it going if we don't get adequate rain, especially because it's going to be warmer. So things dry out much quicker.
Yeah. Okay, here's what I did last fall. I got mushroom manure put on the garden.
Okay.
And there was a big, thick layer of it. So I saved about five or six 5-gallon buckets of mushroom manure. After I seed it, can I cover it over that mushroom manure?
Yes, cover it.
That's the plan?
That's the plan. Don't do too thick of a layer, just enough to cover the soil. And it's good for the seed when you put it on top just to firm it in a little bit. Just get it firmed in there with the soil and then put that cover on. And, of course, we can use the mushroom manure, mushroom compost. You can even use, if you have soil, you can use a little bit of soil. And you can straw, any of those items will work as organic mulches. And, of course, they make, you can buy mulch that you can spread over as well, and especially for patching. That's
and right now they're mixing that mulch in with the seed a lot of the product too. You got to really be careful what you're buying.
Yeah.
Okay. He's Bob Pollock, Extension Service. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
465-3880 if you want to call the office and get yourself a pamphlet, and if you have berries growing out of your ears. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM, AM 1160, 1.1 FM, AM 1160, 1.1